Marcus Thompson had always been different from other men his age. While his friends spent Friday nights at bars looking for the perfect woman with perfect bodies, Marcus preferred quiet evenings reading books or volunteering at the local community center. At 32, he had never been married, not because he couldn't find someone, but because he had never found someone who truly understood what love meant to him. His mother, Sarah Thompson, worried constantly about her son's single status. Every Sunday dinner came with the same conversation about settling down and giving her grandchildren. His younger sister, Linda, would roll her eyes and defend Marcus, but even she wondered why her handsome, successful brother remained alone. Marcus worked as a software engineer for a respected tech company, owned his own house, and had a kind heart that everyone in their small town of Millbrook knew and appreciated. The change came on a rainy Tuesday morning in September, when Marcus decided to try a new coffee shop called Sunrise Beans instead of his usual chain store. The moment he walked through the glass doors, the warm smell of freshly ground coffee and homemade pastries wrapped around him like a comfortable blanket. Behind the counter stood a woman who immediately captured his attention, though not for reasons most people might expect. Elena Rodriguez was generously built, with curves that society often criticized but Marcus found beautiful. Her dark hair was pulled back in a practical ponytail, and her brown eyes sparkled with genuine warmth as she served each customer with careful attention. What struck Marcus most was her smile. It was real, reaching her eyes and lighting up her entire face in a way that made everyone around her feel welcome and valued. As Marcus waited in line, he watched Elena interact with customers. An elderly man fumbled with his wallet, and Elena patiently waited without showing any annoyance. A young mother with 2 crying children received extra napkins and a warm smile. A businessman rushing to work got his order prepared quickly with an encouraging word about having a great day. Elena treated each person with respect and kindness, regardless of who they were or how they looked. When Marcus reached the counter, Elena looked up at him with those warm brown eyes and asked, "What can I get for you today?" Her voice was soft but confident, with a slight accent that hinted at her Hispanic heritage. Marcus found himself speechless for a moment, not because he was nervous, but because he was genuinely moved by the sincerity he saw in her face. "I'll have a large coffee, black," and Marcus glanced at the pastry display. "What would you recommend?" Elena's face brightened even more. She explained that she had baked the cinnamon rolls herself that morning, using her grandmother's secret recipe. As she carefully selected the largest, most perfectly golden roll, Marcus noticed how gentle her hands were, how she took pride in her work. Over the following weeks, Marcus found himself returning to Sunrise Beans every morning before work. He learned that Elena owned the coffee shop with her best friend, Maria, and that she had saved for 5 years to make her dream of owning a business come true. Elena had grown up in a family where food was love, where her grandmother taught her that the best way to care for people was to feed them well and make them feel at home. Marcus also discovered that Elena faced daily challenges he had never considered. He overheard customers making cruel comments about her weight, saw people snicker when she bent over to clean tables, and witnessed the way some people treated her as if she were invisible or less worthy of respect. What amazed Marcus was how Elena handled these situations with grace and dignity, never letting the cruelty of others dim her natural light. One morning, Marcus arrived at the coffee shop to find Elena looking unusually sad. Maria whispered to him that a particularly nasty customer had made horrible comments about Elena's appearance the day before, suggesting that fat people shouldn't be allowed to serve food because they were disgusting to look at. The customer had been loud enough for other patrons to hear, and several had laughed along. Marcus felt anger rise in his chest, not just at the cruel customer, but at a society that could make someone as wonderful as Elena feel ashamed of who she was. He had grown up with a mother who taught him that a person's worth had nothing to do with their appearance and everything to do with their character. Looking at Elena, he saw intelligence, kindness, strength, and beauty that went far deeper than skin. That evening, Marcus made a decision that would change both their lives forever. He had been thinking about Elena constantly for weeks, not just her beautiful smile or the way she made perfect coffee, but her generous spirit, her business sense, her ability to make every person feel special, and her strength in facing a world that often treated her unfairly. The next morning, instead of ordering his usual coffee and leaving for work, Marcus lingered after the morning rush died down. Elena was wiping down tables when he approached her, his heart beating faster than usual. "Elena," he said softly, "I was wondering if you might like to have dinner with me sometime. Not as a customer, but He paused, searching for the right words. "As someone who thinks you're an extraordinary woman and would like to get to know you better." Elena stopped wiping the table and looked up at Marcus with surprise and something that might have been hope. She had noticed this kind, handsome man coming in every morning, had enjoyed their brief conversations, but she had never imagined he might be interested in her romantically. Too many experiences had taught her that men like Marcus didn't date women like her. "Are you sure?" Elena asked quietly, her voice carrying years of hurt and disappointment. Marcus looked directly into her eyes and said, "I've never been more sure of anything in my life. You're the most beautiful woman I've ever met." Inside and out, as Elena agreed to dinner, neither of them could have predicted the journey that lay ahead, the challenges they would face, or the incredible love story that was just beginning to unfold in a small coffee shop in Millbrook. Their first date took place on a Saturday evening at Giuseppe's, a cozy Italian restaurant on the outskirts of town. Marcus had chosen the place carefully, knowing it had dim lighting and private booths where they could talk without feeling like they were on display. He picked Elena up at 7 o'clock, bringing her a single white rose that he had selected because it reminded him of her pure, genuine nature. Elena had spent hours getting ready, changing outfits 3 times before settling on a simple black dress that she felt confident wearing. Her friend Maria had helped her with her hair and makeup, constantly reassuring her that Marcus seemed genuinely interested and that she deserved to be treated well. Still, Elena couldn't shake the nervous feeling in her stomach, the worry that this was all too good to be true. The evening exceeded both their expectations. Marcus was a perfect gentleman, opening doors, pulling out Elena's chair, and treating her with the respect she rarely experienced from men. They talked for 3 hours, sharing stories about their childhoods, their dreams, and their views on life. Elena told Marcus about growing up as the youngest of 4 children in a close-knit Hispanic family, how her parents had worked multiple jobs to provide for their children, and how food had always been the center of family celebrations and comfort. Marcus shared his own story, growing up as the son of a teacher and a mechanic, learning early that hard work and treating people well were the foundations of a good life. He talked about his job designing software systems, his love of reading, and his volunteer work helping elderly people with their computers. Elena was impressed by his intelligence and kindness, but more than that, she was touched by how intently he listened to everything she said. As weeks turned into months, Marcus and Elena's relationship deepened. Marcus met Elena's large, loving family, who welcomed him with open arms and endless plates of delicious food. Elena's mother, Rosa, pulled Marcus aside after their 3rd family dinner and told him in her accented English, "My Elena, she has been hurt before by men who see only her body, not her heart." "But you see her heart, yes?" Marcus nodded, understanding the trust Elena's family was placing in him. Elena, in turn, met Marcus's family. His mother, Sarah, was initially surprised by Elena's size, having unconsciously expected her son to choose someone who fit society's narrow definition of beauty. However, within minutes of talking to Elena, Sarah was charmed by her warmth, intelligence, and obvious devotion to Marcus. Linda, Marcus's sister, became Elena's instant friend, impressed by how happy and confident her brother had become since meeting Elena. The couple faced their first real test during the winter holidays. At the company Christmas party, Marcus proudly introduced Elena as his girlfriend to his co-workers. While many people were polite and welcoming, Marcus overheard several cruel comments when people thought he wasn't listening. His colleague Brad made particularly nasty remarks about Elena's weight, wondering aloud why Marcus would settle for someone like her when he could do so much better. Marcus confronted Brad privately the following Monday, his anger barely controlled as he made it clear that any disrespect toward Elena would not be tolerated. The confrontation became heated when Brad laughed and suggested that Marcus was just going through a phase, or perhaps had some kind of fetish. Without thinking, Marcus grabbed Brad by the shirt and told him that Elena was worth 10 of him, that she was the most beautiful, intelligent, and caring woman he had ever known. News of the confrontation spread through the office, dividing Marcus's co-workers into those who supported him, and those who thought he had lost his mind. Marcus didn't care about office politics, but he worried about how the situation might affect Elena. He had learned to see the world through her eyes, understanding how every public appearance required courage, how every social situation carried the risk of humiliation or rejection. Elena proved stronger than Marcus had expected. When he told her about the incident at work, she took his hands in hers and said, "Marcus, I've been dealing with people like Brad my whole life. What matters is that you stood up for me, that you see me as beautiful when the world tells me I'm not. That's love, real love." Their relationship continued to grow stronger through these challenges. Marcus discovered that Elena was not only beautiful and kind, but also brilliant in business. Her coffee shop was thriving, and she had plans to expand. She managed finances, inventory, employee schedules, and customer relations with skill that impressed Marcus's business-minded friends. Elena was building something meaningful, creating jobs in their community and providing a gathering place where people felt welcomed and valued. Elena, for her part, learned that Marcus's love was genuine and unwavering. He never asked her to change, never suggested diets or exercise programs, never made her feel like she was a project to be improved. Instead, he celebrated her exactly as she was while supporting her dreams and ambitions. When Elena mentioned wanting to take business classes at the local community college, Marcus immediately offered to help her study and rearrange his schedule to support her goals. By their first anniversary, Marcus knew he wanted to spend his life with Elena. He had never been happier, never felt more complete, and never loved anyone the way he loved her. Elena had brought joy, purpose, and meaning to his life in ways he hadn't known were possible. She had also opened his eyes to the cruelty and prejudice that existed in the world, making him a more compassionate and aware person. The proposal came on a quiet Sunday morning in Elena's apartment above the coffee shop. Marcus had planned something elaborate, but as they sat together drinking coffee and reading the newspaper, sharing comfortable silence and occasional conversation, he realized this was perfect. This was their life together, peaceful, loving, real. "Elena," Marcus said, setting down his coffee cup and getting down on one knee beside her chair. "You are my best friend, my greatest love, and the most amazing woman I've ever known. Will you marry me?" The ring was simple but beautiful, a classic solitaire diamond that Elena later learned Marcus had chosen because he wanted something as pure and timeless as his love for her. Through happy tears, Elena said yes, and Marcus slipped the ring onto her finger. As they held each other, both knew they were beginning a new chapter of their love story, one that would face challenges but would be built on the solid foundation of genuine love, respect, and understanding they had created together. Planning their wedding became an exercise in navigating other people's opinions and expectations. Elena's family was thrilled about the engagement, embracing Marcus as a son and immediately beginning plans for a celebration that would honor both their Hispanic traditions and Marcus's family customs. Elena's mother, Rosa, insisted on making Elena's wedding dress herself, spending hours taking measurements and selecting fabric that would make her daughter look like the princess she had always been in her family's eyes. Marcus's family was equally supportive, though his mother, Sarah, initially worried about the challenges the couple might face. During a quiet conversation over coffee, Sarah asked Marcus if he was prepared for the judgment and criticism they would likely encounter throughout their marriage. Marcus's response was simple and firm. "Mom, Elena makes me happier than I ever thought possible. Anyone who can't see how wonderful she is doesn't matter to me." The engagement announcement in the local newspaper generated mixed reactions throughout Millbrook. Longtime residents who knew both families were genuinely happy for the couple, having watched Marcus and Elena's relationship develop and seeing how well suited they were. However, the announcement also brought out the worst in some people. Anonymous comments on the newspaper's website contained cruel jokes about Elena's weight and suggestions that Marcus must be desperate or settling. Elena tried to shield herself from the negativity, but it was impossible to ignore completely. One particularly difficult day, a group of teenagers outside the coffee shop made loud, mocking comments about the upcoming wedding, suggesting that the wedding photos would break the camera and that Marcus must be blind or crazy. Elena ran into the shop's back room in tears, overwhelmed by the casual cruelty of people who didn't even know her. Marcus found Elena crying and held her while she sobbed out her frustration and hurt. "Maybe they're right," Elena whispered. Maybe you deserve someone better, someone who won't embarrass you or make people think less of you. Marcus gently lifted Elena's chin so she had to look at him. Elena Rodriguez, you are the best thing that has ever happened to me. You are brilliant, beautiful, kind, and strong. Anyone who can't see that is missing out on knowing an incredible woman. I'm proud to be marrying you, and I'll spend the rest of my life making sure you never doubt that. The couple decided to have a small, intimate wedding ceremony in Elena's family's backyard, surrounded by the people who truly mattered to them. Elena's uncle, Father Miguel, would perform the ceremony, and Maria would serve as Elena's maid of honor. Marcus chose his childhood friend David as his best man, someone who had known him for 20 years and understood the depth of his love for Elena. 3 weeks before the wedding, tragedy struck the Rodriguez family. Elena's beloved grandmother, Abuela Carmen, who had taught Elena everything she knew about cooking and had been looking forward to the wedding for months, suffered a massive heart attack and passed away peacefully in her sleep. Elena was devastated, not only by the loss but by the fact that her grandmother would never see her wedding day. Marcus canceled his bachelor party and spent the week with Elena and her family, helping with funeral arrangements and providing comfort during their time of grief. He sat with Elena as she went through her grandmother's recipes, listening as she shared memories of learning to cook at Abuela Carmen's side. When Elena worried about postponing the wedding, her family convinced her that Abuela Carmen would want the celebration to continue as planned. The wedding day arrived with perfect September weather. Elena looked stunning in the dress her mother had created, a flowing gown that emphasized her curves while making her feel like a princess. The dress incorporated lace from Abuela Carmen's own wedding gown, making Elena feel like her grandmother was there with her. Marcus wore his grandfather's suit, altered to fit him perfectly, connecting him to his own family history. As Elena walked down the makeshift aisle in her family's backyard, accompanied by her father, she saw only Marcus's face filled with love and admiration. The gathered friends and family, about 50 people total, represented everyone who truly mattered in their lives. Marcus's co-workers who had supported their relationship were there, along with Elena's regular customers who had become like family over the years. Father Miguel's ceremony was beautiful and personal, incorporating both English and Spanish as he spoke about the love he had witnessed between Marcus and Elena over the past 2 years. When it came time for vows, Marcus spoke from his heart. Elena, you have shown me what real love looks like. You have made me a better man, not by changing me, but by loving me exactly as I am while inspiring me to grow. I promise to love you, respect you, and stand by you through whatever life brings us. I promise to see your beauty every day, even when the world tries to tell us otherwise. Elena's vows were equally moving. Marcus, you saw my heart when others saw only my appearance. You believed in my dreams and supported my goals. You have given me the greatest gift possible, feeling loved and valued exactly as I am. I promise to love you with all my heart, to support your dreams as you have supported mine, and to face whatever challenges come our way together, as partners and best friends. The reception was a joyful celebration of food, music, and dancing. Elena's family had prepared a feast featuring all of Abuela Carmen's favorite recipes, and Marcus's family contributed their own traditional dishes. The couple's first dance was to At Last by Etta James, a song that perfectly captured their journey to finding each other. As the evening wound down, Marcus and Elena sat together on the porch swing that had been decorated with white flowers and ribbons. Elena's cousins were cleaning up while the older relatives shared stories and laughter inside the house. Are you happy, Mrs. Thompson? Marcus asked, using Elena's new name for the first time. Elena smiled and leaned against her husband's shoulder. I've never been happier. Mr. Thompson, thank you for seeing me, really seeing me, and loving what you saw. Their honeymoon was a simple but perfect week at a small bed and breakfast in the mountains, where they could be completely alone together, without worrying about judgment or other people's opinions. They hiked, read books, cooked together in their cabin's tiny kitchen, and talked about their dreams for their future together. When they returned to Millbrook as a married couple, they were stronger and more committed than ever. Elena moved into Marcus's house and they began the process of truly blending their lives together. The coffee shop continued to thrive under Elena's management, and Marcus threw himself into supporting her business dreams while maintaining his own successful career. Their marriage faced the usual adjustments any couple experiences, but their foundation of genuine love, respect, and understanding helped them navigate every challenge. More importantly, they had proven to themselves and their community that real love transcends society's narrow definitions of beauty and compatibility. The first year of marriage brought unexpected joys and challenges for Marcus and Elena Thompson. Their combined household became a warm gathering place for both families, with Elena's relatives often stopping by for coffee and Marcus's family becoming regular customers at Sunrise Beans. The coffee shop had become more than just a business. It was a community hub where people came not just for excellent coffee and pastries, but for Elena's warm welcome and genuine interest in their lives. Marcus threw himself into supporting Elena's entrepreneurial dreams. When she mentioned wanting to expand the coffee shop to include a small bakery section, Marcus spent evenings researching commercial ovens and helping Elena develop a business plan. His background in systems and organization complemented Elena's creativity and people skills perfectly. Together, they transformed Sunrise Beans into a thriving business that employed 6 people and served as a gathering place for the entire community. However, their happiness was overshadowed by a growing concern that had been present since their engagement. Elena had been experiencing unusual fatigue, occasional dizzy spells, and what she dismissed as stress-related headaches. Marcus encouraged her to see a doctor, but Elena, like many people without good health insurance, kept postponing the appointment, believing her symptoms were just the result of working long hours and adjusting to married life. The symptoms worsened gradually over several months. Elena would sometimes lose her breath walking up the stairs to their bedroom, and Marcus noticed she was taking more frequent breaks at the coffee shop. Her vibrant energy, which had always been one of her most attractive qualities, seemed to be slowly fading. When Elena fainted during a busy Saturday morning rush at the shop, Marcus insisted on taking her to the emergency room immediately. The initial tests were inconclusive, but Dr. Patricia Williams, a young physician who treated Elena with respect and genuine concern, ordered more comprehensive testing. Elena was terrified, not just of potential medical problems, but of the cost of extensive medical testing on their modest budget. Marcus held her hand through every appointment, assuring her that they would figure out the financial aspects. Later, her health was the priority. The diagnosis came on a rainy Tuesday afternoon in March. Elena had developed a serious heart condition called cardiomyopathy, where the heart muscle becomes weakened and enlarged, making it difficult to pump blood effectively. Dr. Williams explained that the condition could be caused by various factors, including genetics, previous infections, or other underlying health issues. Elena's case appeared to be related to a combination of factors, possibly including the stress her body had endured from years of social judgment and emotional pain. The news was devastating for both Marcus and Elena. At 30, Elena was far too young for such a serious heart condition. Dr. Williams outlined a treatment plan that included medications, lifestyle changes, and regular monitoring. In severe cases, the condition could progress to require heart transplantation, but they would focus on managing the disease and maintaining Elena's quality of life for as long as possible. Elena's first reaction was to push Marcus away, insisting that he shouldn't have to deal with a sick wife when they had only been married for 18 months. "You married a healthy woman," she cried in their bedroom that night. "You don't deserve to be stuck taking care of an invalid. You should find someone else, someone who can give you the life you deserve." Marcus was both heartbroken and frustrated by Elena's words. "Elena Thompson," Marcus said firmly, sitting on the edge of their bed and taking her hands in his. "When I married you, I promised in sickness and in health. Did you think those were just pretty words? I married you because I love you, your heart, your spirit, your incredible strength. A medical diagnosis doesn't change any of that. We're going to fight this together, and we're going to make every day count." The following months tested their marriage in ways they never could have anticipated. Elena had to reduce her hours at the coffee shop, which was difficult for someone who had always prided herself on her work ethic and independence. Marcus took on more responsibilities at home while maintaining his demanding job, often arriving at the coffee shop after work to help with closing procedures or inventory management. The medication Elena needed was expensive, and even with insurance, their monthly medical costs were substantial. Marcus quietly took on freelance programming projects in the evenings, to help cover the expenses, never complaining or making Elena feel guilty about the financial strain. Elena's family rallied around them, with her brother Miguel taking on more responsibilities at the coffee shop, and her mother Rosa preparing healthy meals that fit Elena's new dietary restrictions. Despite the challenges, Marcus and Elena discovered that facing adversity together actually strengthened their relationship. They learned to cherish small moments, quiet mornings drinking coffee together, evening walks when Elena felt strong enough, and the simple pleasure of falling asleep in each other's arms. Marcus had always loved Elena's spirit and determination, but watching her face her illness with courage and grace made him love her even more deeply. Elena's condition fluctuated over the months. Some days she felt almost normal, able to work at the shop and enjoy their regular activities. Other days she was exhausted and short of breath, needing to rest frequently and accept help with basic tasks. Marcus learned to read the subtle signs of Elena's good and bad days, adjusting their plans and expectations accordingly. The community response to Elena's illness revealed both the best and worst of human nature. Many customers and friends rallied around the couple, organizing fundraisers to help with medical expenses and bringing meals when Elena was too tired to cook. However, some people made cruel comments suggesting that Elena's weight had caused her heart problems, or that Marcus should have expected health issues when he married a fat woman. These comments hurt Elena deeply, reinforcing her worst fears that she was a burden to Marcus and that her illness was somehow her own fault. Dr. Williams had explicitly explained that Elena's weight was not the cause of her cardiomyopathy, but societal prejudices run deep. Marcus became fiercely protective of Elena, cutting off relationships with people who couldn't show basic human compassion during their difficult time. One evening, about a year after Elena's diagnosis, they sat together on their back porch watching the sunset. Elena had experienced several good days in a row and was feeling optimistic about the future. "Marcus," she said quietly, "I need you to promise me something. If my condition gets worse, if I become too sick to really live, I don't want you to waste your life taking care of me. You're young, you're wonderful, and you deserve to be happy." Marcus turned to face Elena fully, his expression serious but loving. "Elena, you are my happiness. Taking care of you isn't a burden or a sacrifice, it's a privilege. You have given me more joy in our few years together than I ever thought possible. Whatever comes next, we face it together. That's what love means, and that's what marriage means. I'm not going anywhere." As they held hands watching the stars appear in the darkening sky, both Marcus and Elena understood that their love story was far from over, even though they couldn't predict what the future would bring. The next 2 years brought a bittersweet mixture of beautiful moments and increasing challenges for Marcus and Elena. Elena's heart condition progressed slowly but steadily, requiring adjustments to her medication and lifestyle. She had to give up many of the physical activities she enjoyed, but she refused to let the disease define her life completely. With Marcus's support, she focused on the parts of her life she could still control and enjoy. Elena transformed the coffee shop into something even more special during this time. Unable to work the long physical hours she once did, she shifted her focus to menu development, customer relationships, and training her staff to maintain the warm, welcoming atmosphere that had always made Sunrise Beans special. She created a community board where local artists could display their work. People could post job opportunities or items for sale, and neighbors could connect with each other. Marcus watched with admiration as Elena refused to let her illness make her bitter or defeated. On her good days, she was still the same warm, vibrant woman he had fallen in love with. She continued to remember regular customers' names and favorite orders, asked about their families, and made everyone who entered the shop feel valued and welcomed. On her more difficult days, Elena would sit at a corner table with her laptop, working on the business's books or researching new recipes she wanted to try when she felt stronger. Their relationship deepened in ways Marcus never could have anticipated. The crisis had stripped away any superficial aspects of their marriage, leaving only what was most essential: their deep love, respect, and commitment to each other. They learned to communicate about fears, hopes, and practical concerns with an honesty that many couples never achieve. Marcus discovered that caring for Elena wasn't a burden, but an expression of love that gave his life profound meaning and purpose. The couple decided to travel while Elena was still able to enjoy it. Using savings they had planned to use for a house down payment, they took a 2-week trip to Spain, where Elena could explore her family's cultural heritage and they could create memories together. The trip was magical, filled with beautiful landscapes, incredible food, and the joy of experiencing new places together. Elena felt stronger during the trip, energized by the adventure and Marcus's constant presence beside her. When they returned home, Elena made a decision that initially worried Marcus but ultimately proved to be inspired. She wanted to write a cookbook featuring her grandmother's recipes along with stories about food, family, and the power of hospitality to create community. Elena spent hours each day working on the project, interviewing older family members, testing recipes, and writing about the connections between food and love. Marcus helped Elena with the cookbook project, using his technical skills to format the book and create a simple website where people could order copies. Elena's writing was beautiful and heartfelt, weaving together recipes with memories of family gatherings, stories about immigrant experiences, and reflections on how sharing meals creates bonds between people. The cookbook became Elena's legacy project, something meaningful she could leave behind regardless of what happened with her health. During the 3rd year after Elena's diagnosis, her condition began to deteriorate more noticeably. The medications that had helped manage her symptoms became less effective, and Elena experienced more frequent episodes of fatigue and shortness of breath. Dr. Williams gently broached the subject of more aggressive treatment options, including the possibility of being placed on the heart transplant waiting list. The conversation about transplantation was one of the most difficult Marcus and Elena had ever faced. Elena was torn between hope that a transplant could give her more years with Marcus and fear about the risks and complications involved. Marcus researched every aspect of heart transplantation, wanting to support Elena in making the most informed decision possible. They attended support groups for transplant patients and their families, learning about both the challenges and the success stories. Elena's family rallied around them during this difficult time. Her parents, Rosa and Carlos, moved temporarily to Millbrook to help care for their daughter and support Marcus. Elena's siblings visited regularly, and the coffee shop became even more of a family operation, with everyone contributing their skills to keep Elena's dream alive while she focused on her health. The cookbook project took on new urgency as Elena's energy levels fluctuated unpredictably. Some days she could work for hours, writing and editing with passion and focus. Other days she could barely sit up at her computer for more than a few minutes. Marcus took dictation when Elena was too tired to type, helping her capture stories and memories even when her body was failing her. One particularly difficult evening, Elena broke down crying as she struggled to walk from their living room to the bedroom. "I hate this," she sobbed. "I hate being weak, I hate being dependent, and I hate that this is what our marriage has become. You taking care of a sick person instead of building a life together." Marcus held Elena while she cried, feeling his own heart break at her pain and frustration. "Elena," Marcus said when her tears had subsided, "do you remember our wedding day when Father Miguel talked about how love isn't just about the easy times? He said real love is revealed when life gets difficult. These 3 years haven't been easy, but they've shown me that I married the strongest, most incredible woman in the world. You're not just a sick person I'm taking care of. You're my wife, my best friend, my inspiration. Watching you fight this disease with such courage and grace has made me love you even more deeply." Elena looked into Marcus's eyes and saw nothing but truth and devotion. Despite all the challenges they had faced, despite the uncertainty about their future, Marcus loved her completely and unconditionally. "How did I get so lucky?" Elena whispered. Marcus smiled and kissed her forehead. "I ask myself the same question every single day." That night, as they lay in bed together, Elena made a decision about the transplant. She would pursue the evaluation process and, if approved, join the waiting list. Not because she was afraid to die, but because she wanted to live, to finish her cookbook, to see if they could have children, to grow old with Marcus, and to continue building the beautiful life they had created together. The decision brought both hope and anxiety, but it also brought a sense of peace. Whatever happened next, they would face it together, just as they had faced every challenge since the day they met in a small coffee shop in Millbrook. The heart transplant evaluation process was grueling and emotionally exhausting for both Marcus and Elena. Over the course of several weeks, Elena underwent extensive testing to determine if she was healthy enough in other ways to survive the surgery and post-transplant recovery. The irony wasn't lost on them. Elena needed to be sick enough to require a transplant but healthy enough to survive it. During the evaluation, Elena and Marcus met other couples facing similar situations. They heard stories of successful transplants that gave people years of healthy life, and they also learned about the risks and complications that could occur. The waiting process was perhaps the most difficult part, knowing that Elena's name was on a list, hoping for the call that could save her life, but understanding that the call would only come because someone else had lost theirs. 3 months after being placed on the transplant waiting list, Elena finished her cookbook. The final product was beautiful, filled with family recipes, personal stories, and gorgeous photographs that Marcus had taken of Elena cooking in their kitchen. They decided to print a small run of copies to sell at the coffee shop and through their simple website, with all proceeds going to the American Heart Association. The cookbook launch party was held at Sunrise Beans on a warm Saturday evening in June. The shop was packed with family, friends, customers, and community members who had followed Elena and Marcus's journey over the past few years. Elena, wearing a flowing dress in her favorite shade of blue, looked radiant despite her physical challenges. Marcus stood beside her as she signed copies of Abuela's Kitchen, Recipes and Stories from the Heart, beaming with pride at his wife's accomplishment. During her speech that evening, Elena talked about how food had always been her family's way of expressing love and creating community. She thanked Marcus for believing in her dreams even when her health made them seem impossible, and she thanked their community for supporting them through the most difficult period of their lives. "This cookbook represents more than recipes," Elena said, her voice strong despite her physical frailty. "It represents the power of love to sustain us, the importance of family traditions, and the belief that we can create something meaningful even in the face of uncertainty." The call came at 3:47 a.m. on a Tuesday morning in September, exactly 18 months after Elena had been placed on the transplant list. A compatible heart had become available at the regional medical center, and Elena needed to be at the hospital within 2 hours. Marcus and Elena had rehearsed this moment many times, keeping a packed bag ready and a plan in place, but the reality was still overwhelming. The drive to the medical center was quiet. Both Elena and Marcus lost in their own thoughts and prayers. Elena's parents met them at the hospital, having driven through the night from their home 3 hours away. The pre-surgery preparations moved quickly. More tests, consultations with the surgical team, and the surreal process of signing consent forms for a procedure that could either save Elena's life or end it. Dr. Sarah Chen, the lead transplant surgeon, was confident but honest about the risks involved. Elena's case was complicated by the progression of her cardiomyopathy, but she was still a good candidate for surgery. The operation would take 8 to 12 hours, followed by an intense recovery period and a lifetime of anti-rejection medications. "But," Dr. Chen said with a small smile, "if everything goes well, you could have many healthy years ahead of you." As Elena was prepared for surgery, she and Marcus had a few precious minutes alone together. "I need you to know," Elena said, holding Marcus's hands tightly, "that these past 5 years have been the happiest of my life. You saw me, really saw me when the world told you I wasn't worth seeing. You loved me when I was healthy and strong, and you've loved me through sickness and weakness. If something happens today, I want you to know that you gave me the greatest gift possible, feeling truly, completely loved." Marcus fought back tears as he kissed his wife's forehead. "Elena Thompson, you are the strongest, most beautiful woman I have ever known. You're going to come through this surgery because we have so much more life to live together. I'll be right here waiting for you when you wake up, and we're going to celebrate your new heart by dancing at our 5th wedding anniversary." The surgery lasted 11 hours. Marcus paced the hospital corridors, dozed fitfully in uncomfortable waiting room chairs, and was surrounded by both their families who had gathered to provide support. Elena's brother Miguel had taken over the coffee shop operations, and Maria organized a prayer circle that included people from all over Millbrook. The community that had watched their love story unfold was now holding vigil for Elena's recovery. Dr. Chen emerged from surgery looking exhausted but pleased. The operation had been successful, and Elena's new heart was already beating strongly in her chest. However, the next 72 hours would be critical as her body adjusted to the transplant. Elena would remain sedated in the intensive care unit while her medical team monitored for signs of rejection or complications. Marcus spent those 3 days at Elena's bedside, holding her hand and talking to her even though she couldn't respond. He told her about messages from friends, updates from the coffee shop, and his plans for their future together. He read her favorite passages from books, played her favorite music softly, and simply sat with her, providing the constant presence of his love. On the 4th day after surgery, Elena's eyes fluttered open. The first thing she saw was Marcus's face, unshaven and exhausted but glowing with joy and relief. "Hi, my queen," Marcus whispered, using the pet name that had become his special term of endearment for Elena. "How does it feel to have a new heart?" Elena tried to speak, but her throat was too dry from the breathing tube. Marcus gave her ice chips and waited patiently while she found her voice. "It feels," Elena finally whispered, "like I might actually get to grow old with you after all." Marcus laughed and cried at the same time, overwhelmed with gratitude and hope. The long journey wasn't over. Elena would need months of recovery and a lifetime of careful medical management. But they had been given the gift of time, the possibility of a future together. Elena's recovery exceeded everyone's expectations. Within weeks, she had more energy than she'd experienced in years. The vibrant, dynamic woman Marcus had fallen in love with began to re-emerge as her new heart pumped life throughout her body. 6 months after the transplant, Elena was back to working part-time at Sunrise Beans, cooking elaborate meals for their families, and making plans for the future. Their 5th wedding anniversary celebration was everything Marcus had promised during those dark hours before Elena's surgery. They renewed their vows in a small ceremony at the same church where they had been married, surrounded by the family and friends who had supported them through their greatest challenge. Elena wore a dress she had dreamed of but never been strong enough to wear, and Marcus looked at her with the same wonder and adoration he had shown on their first wedding day. During the ceremony, Marcus spoke about how Elena had taught him the true meaning of love, not just the easy emotions of attraction and compatibility, but the deep, enduring commitment that sustains couples through life's greatest trials. "Elena has shown me that real beauty comes from strength in the face of adversity, grace under pressure, and the courage to keep loving even when love requires sacrifice," Marcus said, his voice strong and clear. Elena, radiant with health and happiness, talked about how Marcus had never wavered in his devotion, never made her feel like a burden, and never stopped seeing her as beautiful even when she couldn't see it herself. "Marcus saw my heart before he ever saw my body," Elena said. "He loved my soul before he knew about my illness. And he has shown me that true love isn't diminished by hardship, it's revealed by it." As they danced to the same song they had chosen for their first wedding, surrounded by everyone who mattered most to them, Marcus and Elena knew they had been given something precious and rare. Their love story, which had begun with a man who saw beauty where others saw only flaws, had survived its greatest test and emerged stronger than ever. Years later, when people would ask Marcus about his marriage to the woman others had mocked and dismissed, he would smile and say, "I didn't marry Elena despite what others saw as her flaws. I married her because I was smart enough to recognize a queen when I met one. She has been my queen from the very first day, and she always will be." Elena's cookbook became a local bestseller, and Sunrise Beans expanded into a small chain of coffee shops throughout their region. More importantly, their story became an inspiration to others, proof that real love transcends society's narrow definitions of beauty, and that the strongest marriages are forged not in easy times, but in the crucible of life's greatest challenges. Marcus and Elena Thompson had found something that many people search for their entire lives, a love that was authentic, enduring, and transformative. In a world that often values surface beauty over substance, their marriage stood as testament to the power of seeing with the heart rather than just the eyes, and loving with a depth that can weather any storm.